Hi, I'm Shelby Eby. I'll be one of the presenters today for Specials for ELs.
Hi, I'm Elena Hughes.
We're glad you're here, and we hope that some of the strategies and things we talk about today can be helpful to you for your English learners in your specials classroom. So before we get started, I'd like to talk you through our agenda and kind of just an intro to some things that we might say or some EL, English learner language that might be used throughout the presentation. So as you probably know, EL levels can range from a 1 to a 6. In Indiana, a level 5 is considered fluent. They have tested out of the EL program in the district. So our levels 1 through 4 are our levels that we're pretty concerned about. Level 1 would be almost no English. Then level 2 is moving into they're going to start speaking in English. Level 3, it'll get a little bit more complicated, and level 4 they're almost about to that fluent, but they're still going to need a little bit of help with vocabulary. So it's important to know that sometimes we see level 3 and level 4 and we think, oh, they're good to go. But level 3 and level 4 EL students sometimes still do need some extra help. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about some specific students that you might have in your classroom that are EL students. So here's a quick overview of the agenda for today's PD. We're going to start out by talking about some Seesaw tips and tricks for our EL students. Follow that up by a sample music lesson on Seesaw. After that, we have an interview with the art teacher at Feeser, Jason Brewer, about diversity in art class and how he includes EL students in his art classes. And then after that, some reflections just about what you saw and heard in the PD and how that applies to your students. So that's what you can expect from today. Let's jump into it. So we at Feeser, like most of the district, have a time where our students can come to us as EL teachers for office hours, so they can bring their homework questions or their e-learning questions, and we can help them out with that. And we've been getting a lot of questions from students about how they do their e-learning for specials classes. So we wanted to just briefly talk through what Seesaw assignments can look like for EL students and how to make it a little bit easier for EL students to navigate those assignments. A lot of the assignments we've been seeing from you as specials teachers have been awesome. And some of you are already going to be doing some of the tips that we say today. But just so you can see an example from an EL teacher, hopefully this can be helpful to you. So this is what an assignment for a low-level EL would look like, and this has some of the accessibility features that you could use in any class, in any special. I did go through an example of kind of the format that I generally use on Seesaw, and then I did an example music lesson. I'm not a music teacher. I have taught piano in the past, so I did use some recordings of my piano playing. It's not a professional music teacher, so just take it as it is, but you can kind of see some of the accessibility features that I've built into it. That's the intention, not actually the lesson. On this, it's really just short and simple. A lot of times this is the instruction page and we want to put all of the instructions here. For my assignments, I don't really put a lot of the instructions here at all. Short and simple. I also have voice recorded exactly what I wrote here. So it says keep it short and simple here so they can see the text and hear the text. They both read it and hear it. Then over here, I have a video instructions as well. So this is me of whatever the instructions are over here, I have rephrased it and then put it in a video. So now I have 1, text, 2, and 3 ways that my EL students might be able to figure out what's going on. So that's the home page of my assignment. Okay, so now we get actually into the assignment. So I'm gonna go ahead and click add response. And this is what my sample student would see when they went into my assignment. They can always go back to the instructions up here. They typically don't. But I have it all broken down into steps, short, easy steps, and then there's gonna be instructions for every single one. So this is just really generic. These stickers here have nothing to do with anything. Let's walk through it. I have a video of my instructions. This is going to include, I give them the instructions of what I want them to do, and I model it. So I used these stickers in my little model. So I have modeled it on the video, I have a picture of it, and then I always give them a placeholder for exactly where they put their work. So for this example, they would have submitted a picture of their work, and I want them to put this picture right here because a lot of times they did the work, but they don't know where to put it. So I always include those placeholders. Let's go to slide 2. This is where I get to step 2. It really looks like the same thing. I never put more than one line of text at the top for the instructions. I always have the instructions recorded so that they can hear them as well. They have to see it and hear it. That's just one more way that we can make sure that EL students have multiple opportunities to see and hear things in different ways and be more likely to be successful. So my video includes the instructions and a model of step 2. I always give an example in a picture and then a placeholder for their work. So what if you want your students to use outside apps or videos? So I usually start by embedding the video and instructions right here. So I'm going to put the video I want them to watch right here and then screen record the instructions. Seesaw is a little bit tricky because we are bound by one video and one screen recording per slide. So right here, I'm going to use my video for the link of the video or the YouTube or whatever I want them to watch. It's going to be linked here for the video, and then I'm also going to use my screen recording here. If I want them to use a special app, I always put a picture of it. Whenever we Google Meet, I put the Google Meet logo on there so they know exactly what app to go to. That's especially for if it's something new, give them a picture of the icon. And that's really simple. Most of you are already doing that on the assignments I've seen. And then once again, whatever you want them to do, make sure it's in the video instructions so they can hear it, and then give them some sort of placeholder about what their work should look like, or a template, or a picture of your work goes here. I use those placeholders a lot. So then here is my example. This is a music lesson. Like I said, I'm not a music teacher. This is nothing professional. Don't use this lesson. I went to your standards, your K-2 standards. This example lesson includes accessibility stuff that you could use for PE, library, music, art, whatever. But this is a music standard. And then I have my Bitmoji with my grand piano. I'll dream of having a grand piano, but never have one. So here I want students to demonstrate music's expressive qualities such as louder, softer, higher, lower, faster, slower, same and different using music vocabulary. So I just focused in on the louder and softer and used the vocabulary forte and piano. So I made sure that I introduced that vocabulary before students had to do anything. And I did that through a video. Let's go to the next slide. So I have green right here. Purple is like my example lesson. So we're moving into the purple. Right here, this line right here is not something I would give students. This is just for your reference of what my rationale for each one of these parts. So here I have step 1. They learn about this vocabulary, and I put the vocabulary in there. It's highlighted, it's big. They see, oh, forte and piano, those are important words. And then I have my video instructions and example and model. Actually, this is just my example and model and an explanation of vocabulary, and then the instructions for their activity are screen recorded. Like I said, Seesaw is bound to one video and one screen recording, so I used both of those to get some extra audio. I also have this little listen icon so that students can see, I need to click on this and listen to this. That's especially helpful for any like kindergarten, first grade student. They aren't reading yet. Use as much audio as you can. So once again, my model and then the instructions. And then I had a little activity. I will make it accessible to you so that you can see this assignment, but the activity had them taking a picture of something forte and piano. So my example was this guitar could be forte and loud, and this book is going to be something I'm going to be do quietly, so it could be more piano. And then they were supposed to take their own pictures, and I have a placeholder for each picture. Really simple, not anything earth-shattering at all, But you have two ways to get audio in here. They have examples. The vocabulary is attached to a picture, which is super great. Always attach that new vocabulary to a picture, and then they know exactly where to go to put their own work. Moving on, this is another activity. Step 2, I have it broken down into steps. Once again, their task is to move the video to the right category. But I have up here my screen recording of the instructions so they can hear, and they have that listening icon again. I know exactly where to go to hear the instructions. They're always at the top. This video is what I need to move. I hear that in the instructions. And so they listen to the video and they have to decide if it's forte or piano and just move it to that. There's another example of this same sort of thing. Different video, they move it to forte or move it to piano. And so that's just one concept. But to go back through that, they always have instructions recorded, a model recorded, and then vocabulary attached to pictures. There's also some things that are just making it easier for them to navigate. That being, they don't have to keep clicking back to these instructions. When they have to keep clicking back to these instructions over and over, it just gets really difficult for them to manage it, in my experience. And sometimes EL students just, they know how to do it, they want to do it, but they don't know where to look. So the only other thing I would say is these placeholders have been really helpful for me. Some sort of, it looks the same every time and they know exactly where to put their work. So you're getting it in the right format. So that's just one more thing, and I have this image icon so that they know that's where a picture needs to be. Really anything, any little icons to help them out. Same thing up here where I gave them, maybe I'm using GarageBand for this assignment, so I'm gonna say go to this icon. Or I'm gonna use Sketch Pro and I'm gonna say go to this icon. So any of those, give them a little bit of an image, attach a vocab word to a picture, model it, use your audio, use your two audios, your video and your screen record in every slide if you need to. So those are my tips and tricks, and that's just how can we make it a little bit easier for them to figure out where to go and what to do when everything's not in their native language. So let's move into the next segment of the session. In the next segment, you will see our other presenter, Elena Hughes, along with Feeser's art teacher, Jason Brewer, in an interview about how Jason makes sure that his special class, his art class, has room for diversity.
Hi, I'm with Jason Brewer, who is our art teacher at Mary Feeser Elementary. I have a couple of questions for Jason. And our first one, I'd like to get started by asking how you make your art projects diversified for all our learners here in our building.
Okay. I dig around on the internet for inspiration all the time, like everyone does. I also talk to people around the building that I know who are interested in the same things. I'm constantly looking for what's going on in the building to see if I can somehow interlock what I'm doing with what's already being done. There's good work being done all over the building by people from different backgrounds and ethnicities. It's really good to get their input, to run ideas by them. We did a project this year that comes to us from the Caribbean. It's practiced in a bunch of different countries down there, but I'd never heard of it, and it was so much fun. And we managed to incorporate upcycling and a bunch of other ideas into this, and this is relevant to many, many cultures that come to us from outside the U.S. This is one example. It's a great idea to pick the brains of the brilliant people that you work with.
What other kind of resources do you get outside for, where do you go for outside resources for your projects?
You're not referring to paint or plaster or something like that. Outside resources. I've had very good luck digging around on the net. I read a lot. I read all the time. It's not hard to go down the rabbit trail and find plenty there, more than could ever even begin to touch on. Not necessarily developed for classes already. A lot of times I will see simply just an image, a result from a Google image search, And I dig into who made that? Well, what were they thinking about? And how did they come up with that? And before long, I've got 50 different things I can base a lesson on.
Good.
It's really surprisingly easy because there's so much information out there still of so many different kinds, and I would recommend going outside of like an educational website if you want to try to find things that aren't already being done.
Okay. When introducing projects, especially to our EL learners, especially EL level ones, that kind of thing, this can be the one time in their day where they get to be a part of something, that they can do. How do you do that?
Oh, well, it's lucky that I'm teaching art. I recognize that it's different and more difficult if I'm teaching language arts, for instance, to bring it alive, get somebody hooked in and get them started. I do a lot of demonstration in kind of a small group setting. Even when I've got a room full of 30 kids, which happens every day, I gather them all together as close as possible and I show them step by step, guided steps. So not only are they hearing about it, I'm talking and using the relevant vocabulary, but they're also seeing it happen right in front of their eyes. Then, and this is where the learning actually happens, they get to immediately go and try 1 or 2 steps that they just saw and heard about. So they're getting the vocabulary and they're actually doing it with their hands. And you and I know that when you practice something that you just heard about, read about, saw, or whatever, that's when you finally like, oh, I think I know what balance means now. Now I know what that term means, and I just created a type of balance. Okay, so it's a lot of simple step-by-step direction that does not rely exclusively on vocabulary, but still does give plenty of that out.
I've seen you do that plenty of times with the I do, you do.
Yep.
And then you bring them all together.
Sure.
That's a wonderful sight to see at a table when you have all these kids watching you do that.
It's fun, and chorusing is all in there, all that stuff. None of it is new particularly, but I find it to be really helpful, and I work really hard to make kids feel like if we make a mistake, it's okay, we'll fix it somehow. Artists make mistakes all the time, and we get good at fixing stuff.
Which leads me to my next question. How do you get the kids of all levels, of all kinds, how do you get them to participate? For me, I know it was really hard for me when I was in school to find art of something that I wanted to do a lot. It wasn't until later that I had a teacher that had encouraged me. So how do you encourage the kids to all participate?
Well, right now, what I do the most is I offer invitations that are kind of hard to resist. The atmosphere in here probably could be described something as like, this train is leaving the station, jump on. We're going to good places, come with us, we want you with us, you know what I mean? So I don't really give them a lot of opportunity to hem and haw and come up with 20 reasons in their own mind why I can't do it and it's not perfect and all the self-defeating self-talk that we do to ourselves, right? It's a pretty rapid pace in here typically. I try to balance that with the idea that you don't have to race to a finish line, but constant motion is a thing. That's important. Creating momentum like that where there's not waiting around and which fosters self-doubt sometimes if it's a tendency can be helpful, okay? And I'm hoping to offer more choices in the coming years. I'm getting ready to switch the model of how I do things. Not only will I have a guided activity that someone can choose to be a part of and jump right in and just participate. It's a constant series, again, of invitations to participate, but really they have to pick up the ball and choose to do it. If they choose not to, eventually I can usually wear them down. I never give up inviting. But there are times when you just have to walk away and be like, okay, you know what we're doing. You understand what to do. You need a little time to get over whatever was going on with you in the last hour that's got you all frozen in space, you know what I mean? thaw out and come realize you're in a warm, safe place here where we can do stuff together and it's more fun. But soon they're gonna have parallel tracks that they can choose. The projects that I'm gonna be guiding kids through are gonna introduce techniques to them that then they will be able to choose and go back and work in different media if they want to. And they don't necessarily have to do whatever the main group project is. They can choose their own thing to work on as long as they're being productive. So I'm really looking forward to offering that to kids who want to work at a different pace, who don't necessarily want to work on the painting that I've, prescribed to everyone, who already understand what I'm trying to teach in that lesson, and then they'll be able to choose and get involved that way. So that might catch a couple of them that might be reluctant to join a big group and would rather do their own thing. And they're still getting some valid art experience in here.
It's wonderful.
Art has its advantages. We can do so much with other sign systems and just demonstrating, and it's hands-on in a way that it's pretty hard to do with other disciplines. So I feel grateful that I can accommodate a lot that way.
Okay, Mr. Brewer, can you explain a little bit about your Seesaw activities and their relevance to our EL learners?
Yeah, I've made a bunch of them in the lockdown here, and I do two things to try to make them accessible to everybody. I, on most assignments, record the directions as written so they can listen back to them, just an audio recording. I use screen recording a lot too, so that they can see what I'm clicking on and the motions I make and what I choose on the screen while I'm kind of narrating my way through that. So they're still getting exposure to the content-oriented language, and they're able to see how to navigate things. And so I'm hoping that that's been helpful to everyone.
Well, thank you so very much for joining.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
We are about to move into our final reflection questions section of the video, but before we do that, I just wanted to make you aware that there's all sorts of resources available to you in the description of this video, including the example Seesaw assignment. I have that linked down below, so make sure you check out the description. There's resources specific to specific specials, to library, all sorts of stuff. Make sure to check it out. So to conclude today, we'd like to go through a few reflection questions. And I'll talk through these questions a little bit, but you can go ahead and type your answers in the comments section under this video. Elena and I are there right now. We're going to be looking through your comments. So question 1 that we have is, what simple strategies did you hear that would be easy to apply for all your students, not just your ESL students? Number 2, how do you plan for diversity? What are you already doing? And what support do you need from EL teachers or administration to help guide you? And then number 3, one part of our district's initiative is SIOP training. You might have even done that today. How do you implement SIOP in your specials classroom? And what part of SIOP is especially relevant for you as specials teachers? So if you could think through those questions and type something in the comments section. We will be looking through those comments and answering questions and communicating with our district EL administration so that if we don't have answers to questions, they can help you out and we get a better idea of what support specials teachers need and what guidance that we can give to help you out as you serve our EL students as well as us. We'd also like you to know that this is just a snapshot of specials. Obviously, we did not address all of the specials. Maybe you're a PE teacher and you're like, well, I didn't see an example lesson for me and I didn't hear from a PE teacher. I hope that some of the strategies you saw were still helpful. We just wanted to give a snapshot of some things you can do. But specials are really broad. So hopefully something was helpful to you today. If you have specific questions for us, go ahead and type those in the comments as well. We will be happy to answer those as much as we can, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks for joining us today.